raise your activity level. There's probably no way that any high school basketball player can improve better overnight than just by raising your activity level. There used to be a great tennis commercial on TV years ago. You've probably never seen it, but it had a tennis player with paint on his feet. And they showed the tennis player moving around the court in various ways, and each time he moved, there'd be a footprint, a complete footprint, painted on the court. And the reason I'd like you to think about that, imagine the way you play defense, for example. For a lot of you, during a whole defensive play, it might be that you would only plant 3 or 4 or 6 or 8 footprints in a little square on the court because you're so passive. If nothing dramatic happens or your man doesn't run somewhere, you're basically just standing there and occasionally moving your feet. If you really want to play good basketball, you've got to raise your activity level. You've got to put your footprints all over the court. You should fill it up with the activity level that you make. If you do that, you'll be a better player instantly. Probably the most important fundamental in basketball is the ability to hold the ball in traffic. So many times you're double teamed, you have to hold it tight. You get a rebound, you have to hold it tight. You're playing any pressure defense, you have to be able to hold the ball with confidence against somebody who's trying to take it, or maybe 2 or 3 players. There's really only one place to put a ball when you're in traffic and you're in trouble. That's right under your chin, against your neck, with your elbows out and your knees bent. And if anybody tries to get in your way, they have to worry about getting hurt, because this isn't football. They're not allowed to tackle you. They're not even allowed to invade your space. So you have to make sure, instead of getting the ball and standing there and being off balance with it, you have to learn to get the ball and be tough. Some of you are probably real tough players and you think, oh yeah, I'm good, I can just hold the ball. And then you play against someone like Charles Barkley or Karl Malone and you're not so tough. You ought to know that anytime you're playing against someone tougher than you, you better do it right. That's putting the ball not just somewhere around here, but actually against your neck with your elbows out, so that people really have to respect your space. Crucial thing, seems so easy. People hardly even talk about it. When you talk about people's fundamentals, I never hear anybody mention this. For me, it's one of the most important fundamentals in the game. The moment your finger ever touches leather, you peek at your basket. If your basket's there, you peek there. If your basket's there, you peek there. It wouldn't matter to me if you were falling out of bounds when your hand touched leather. Before you even looked to the ground, you peeked to your basket. I use peek because I want some word that'll stick in your mind, not just look at the basket, but think of the word peek. The moment you get it, you may be double teamed, but if the ball touches you, you peek and look at the basket. Doesn't matter what situation, who's on you, or what's going on. If there's a great pass to be thrown, the only way you ever know that is if you look right away when you get the ball. Players very seldom think about this as a fundamental. Again, I think coaches think it's one of the most crucial fundamentals, the ability to stop. Many basketball players can go fast. Very few ever practice stopping, and therefore you have a lot of walking calls or forced passes against fast breaks and different kinds of presses because players aren't accustomed to going fast and stopping. Again, I don't think you need many hours for practicing this. A few times before practice, reminding yourself to get the ball, go as fast as you can, stop on 2 feet, stop sharply, be able to do anything. Go back again, get the ball, take it, go fast, stop sharply, be ready to do anything. Again, 3 or 4 times a day before practice to remind yourself. It's a great thing to show control in a basketball game by going fast and stopping sharply and showing you can do anything you want. You're not up in the air forcing a quick pass. You're on the ground, able to fake, able to do whatever you want. What would you do if Charles Barkley were coming hard down the court against you, showing that he was going to go straight to the basket? would you have the courage to take a charge? Most of you wrongly think that you need courage to take a charge because you haven't learned to do it properly. If Charles Barkley's coming down against you and you need to play defense against him, you'd need a lot of courage to stand there like that and take his force on your chest. But you don't need courage if you know how to properly get low and wide and take a charge like this. Now you're not standing chest to chest with a big tough guy who's bearing down on you. You get lower and wider and you protect yourself with your forearm, and when he hits into you, you fall about 4 inches down, and there's your charge. Okay, now nobody needs much courage to play like this and get low and wide, take a foot on a forearm, and fall 4 inches. That's the way you ought to look to take charges. Now once you learn to do that, you'll feel fine taking a charge in front of anybody. Here comes a big tough guy. You're not up here chest to chest. You're down here nice and low, ready to take all the force on your arm and make a little 4-inch fall. That way you have abundant courage. You can get in anybody's way. It's the person driving in that has to worry now about catching a foot on your forearm and going toppling over. Now, if you were playing defense against Charles Barkley, he would have to worry about getting hurt, not you. It's not that you're tougher than Charles Barkley, you just know what to do. You become low and wide and take the charge this way. People aren't accustomed to seeing that, but it's a great thing to enable you to play better defense. Again, you don't need hours to practice this, probably 30 seconds a day to remind yourself as somebody's coming. Retreat, get low, protect yourself, fall 4 inches. Okay, let's watch everybody without a ball just remind themselves how to take a charge. Make eye contact with your coaches and your teammates. Some of you may be shy, some of you may be rebellious, and you think when someone's talking to you that it's difficult to look in their eyes. If that's the way you are, change. It makes a difference if you look somebody in the eye. If you look your coach in the eye, he'll give you better instruction or she'll give you better things to do. She'll coach harder. Your coach will work better if giving instructions to athletes that are looking them in the eye and really watching them. Same with your teammates. If you're going to communicate with your teammates, look them in the eye. It seems like a little point, but if you don't do it, it's a major failure that will hinder your game. A lot of you will be surprised. In fact, a lot of coaches will be surprised that I think one of the important fundamentals of basketball is the idea of being cheerful. You say, well, you mean that's more important than shooting, passing, and dribbling? I'm not saying that. I'm saying it's a very important fundamental. Why? It's a long season. It's a team game. You have to get along with people, and there's a lot to go through, a lot of crises in a year. If you go into the year not realizing that your attitude, your exterior, the kind of disposition that you give off is contagious. If you walk around a basketball court, let's say you come out to practice. Think of these two things. You come out to practice, I'm shooting at this basket, and I see you come, and I kind of smile or raise my eyes a little bit and say, hey, how are you doing? And I throw you a ball to shoot it. Versus I'm practicing or I'm shooting the ball and I've got this scowl on my face. I'm not hard at work even practicing yet. I just have this let me alone, I'm too good for you, or I have other things on my mind. It's wonderful if you're hard at work and practicing. That's different. But think of how often you walk into a gym and your teammates are just sitting on the side or standing in the corner of the gym. And for some reason, I think because they don't understand how important it is, they have frowns on their faces. And they're just standing there making it a little bit unpleasant to walk into the gym. Make it pleasant to walk in the gym. It's a team game and cheerfulness matters. basketball players' favorite thing, dribbles that go at their feet going nowhere. I had a camp one time years ago, and a pro player was a counselor, and some little kid got the ball, was standing there dribbling, and the pro player said, "Don't stand there like you're peeing, go someplace with the ball." And so I started naming these dribbles where you're just standing there doing nothing, pee dribbles. And I would urge you to eliminate all pee dribbles from your game. I know what a lot of you are thinking. Oh yeah, there's a lot of times when I need to keep my dribble, or I'm getting off balance, or I need to use up time. You can give all the excuses you want, but great players learn to play without pee dribbling. They learn to be very economical. They decide to go somewhere, and they go there quickly. And yeah, once you're a great player, there may be times when the coach says, just stand there and dribble out the time, and that may be a wonderful thing to do. But I'm going to tell you that until you start making an effort to eliminate pee dribbles, actually you're bogging down your own game. You ought to start thinking about how many X dribbles you take per game, not how many P dribbles. X dribbles are explosive dribbles. Dribbles where you get the ball and your first dribble goes down here and you really go someplace. It would be nice if you could get your parents who love to come and watch you play, or a friend, to just count how many times during a game you drop the ball at your feet and how many times your first dribble is with an explosive move that causes you to groan or grunt when you move. Like you have the ball and you go, ugh, and try to go somewhere, instead of all those mediocre dribbles that you get away with against easy teams, and suddenly you play a good team and someone's stealing those balls or causing you to pick up your dribble and have problems. You ought to practice every day explosive dribbles and think about them. Eliminate the P dribbles and start using more and more explosive moves. An important skill not often talked about in basketball is the ability to spin. And there's a lot of different places you can use it. For example, in rebounding, in getting by a screen, in low post defense, and also when you're trying to free yourself to get open. So just to give you an example, the reason you use spinning, particularly if you're playing against a stronger player, a lot of times, let's say the ball was in there going up for the shot, somebody took a shot and she blocked me out. If she's stronger than I am and I'm just pushing, I can go nowhere here. But if she's strong and I spin, it's very difficult to stop someone's movement when you spin. So you can see when you're being blocked out, you ought to get in the habit of moving to the basket, and when you can't go anymore, to just make some kind of spin, because it's so difficult to hold somebody that's spinning. That's the same thing when you're being screened a lot of times. If she was setting a screen right here and I was trying to get by this and I bumped into her and couldn't get by it, many times I can get by spinning by the screen. Same thing in low post defense. Let's just pretend that she was on the low post right now and I'm trying to guard her and she's strong and she's holding me out and asking for the ball there. We'll pretend the ball was out that way and she's holding me with this arm and asking for the ball. If she's strong, I can't get by here. It's a lot easier for me to get by if I spin than if I try to just push. And of course I can spin in either direction, to spin to front her or spin to get around this way. Again, very difficult to hold somebody who's spinning. When you're trying to free yourself, let's say the ball was out of bounds under there and I'm trying to get free and she's trying to guard me and keep me from getting it. A lot of times, like, I run here to get the ball and I just can't get it. So a lot of times to free myself, I run extra hard and let her get this way and then try to spin to get her behind me and then get the ball. Spinning can be a very useful skill in basketball. I'm going to start with number 2 for a purpose. Anytime, rule number 2, anytime that you have the ball, you engage 2 players. Right here we have a typical 2-3 zone. A couple guards out here and a center here and a couple forwards. And, oh, excuse me, I'm sorry, referees are always in the way. You got to get the referees off the court, but a couple of zebras here. It's a shame I didn't have dark glasses for them. But anyway, okay, here we have a typical 2-3 zone, and you have a point guard coming down the court. Now you can imagine if you're coming down the court, this is pretty simple. Here we have a ball here. Let's put the ball on the point guard so you get a good sense of, here's the point guard coming down the court engaging 2. Now, this is pretty obvious in this case that the point guard comes down and engages 2. But in case, let's say you're the player on the side, when the ball goes from the point guard over to you, again, you have to engage 2. If the ball went to you, let's say, in this spot right here, where only 1 is on you, your job is either to take it here to engage a second player or to take it to the middle to engage a second player. My point here is that wherever you are in the court, let's say that suddenly the ball went all the way over to you in the corner and you find yourself guarded by 1 player in the corner. Don't stay here with the corner. Bring the ball here to bring a second player on you. This will make sense shortly, but remember, always engage 2. Rule number 2 against a zone is engage 2 people. If you happen to be playing against a 2-3 zone, it's very simple. The 2 people were already in place. All you have to do is dribble toward them, and they come on you. You've engaged 2. Now let's look at what happens when we have 3 people up here, because you may be playing against a 1-3-1 or a 1-2-2 zone. So let's say, just for a moment, Jill, you come up here. And let's say Jill plays at the top of the circle. Now I can't do my normal thing, which would be come up here and just stop and let Jill guard me, because what are we saying rule number 2 is? Rule number 2 is engage 2. That means that I have to veer off and come here so Willow gets me and I have 2 people trying to guard me. If I go the other way, that's okay also. As long as I veer off and make 2 people guard me, I'm doing just what I want. I want 2 people to guard me before I pass the ball. Doesn't matter where you are against the zone. If you have the ball, instead of being content to have 1 person on you, unless you have someone wide open that you can just throw to, always get a second person on you engaged and then throw the pass. The important thing is to engage 2, but try not to get married. It's a little of a cat and mouse game. I don't want to just rush into there and then have them be on me so that I lose my options. I'd like to come up slowly and make sure that I've engaged both of their interests, but keep my options open so that I can throw to all 4 of my teammates. This is the marriage that you don't want. What you don't want is to come here, be in real trouble, and now you have to turn your back and just look for someone to throw to. You would much rather be in this position where you could see all your teammates and have 4 options to throw to 4 people against 3 defenders. Rule number 3 ought to make sense to you. It's the triangle rule. 3 points, 3 fingers, 3 points on a triangle. Anytime you're in a game and you're next to the ball, you line up in a triangle position. That's rule number 3. Rule number 3 is the triangle rule. That just says that the 2 players adjacent to the ball, and there are always 2 people adjacent to the ball, stand in order to wonder where should they be. Of course, you could stand out here and say you're open for a pass, but the perfect place for you to stay is in a perfect triangle with the next 2 defenders. Now, this is not a perfect triangle, and this is not a perfect triangle, but this is, where the players are equidistant from each other. On this side as well, this player stands in a perfect triangle to be in the perfect place to catch the ball. Now, you can catch it other places, and you could say, well, what's so bad about catching it here? But it's better to catch it in a perfect triangle, and the reasons for that will become obvious shortly. Let's say that the ball suddenly went to the side, and this person engaged 2 people. Now, where's a perfect triangle to receive the ball? For this person, adjacent to the ball, perfect triangle would be with these 2 defenders right here. If this is the way they remained, right here, then a perfect triangle on this side would be right here. And this would be the perfect place to receive the ball. Remember, rule number 3, if you're next to the ball, you're in a perfect triangle with the next 2 defenders. Rule number 3 against a zone is the triangle rule, which states that the 2 people next to the ball, there's always someone to the right of the ball, someone to the left of the ball. Those 2 players, in order to be in the perfect place to receive a pass, are always in a perfect triangle with the nearest 2 defenders. Let's show what that looks like on the court. Let's say, for example, the ball is being dribbled down the court. It gets here, and there's 2 people in the zone take the ball. So let's just leave the ball here, and you can see there'd be 2 defenders on the ball. The person immediately adjacent on the right has to decide where's the best place to stand. This wouldn't be a good place. the way to know what's the perfect place is to see the nearest two defenders, how far are they apart. In this case, they look about 6 feet apart, so I want to be 6 feet from Jill and 6 feet from Andre. We can show this just by watching a couple of players or 3 players come down. Lydia is lying down here between the two, showing that they're about 6 feet apart. Now I know that the perfect place for me to be is right here in this triangle. Now, if there were 12 feet between them, I'd want to be 12 feet from each of the players. But since there's 6 feet, one person, I'd like to be right here. This is the perfect place to get the ball because this allows me to catch it and engage two immediately the moment I catch the ball. We're talking here about passing priorities. Whenever you have a big player that's outside with you about to set a screen, this is an ideal time to expect to hit that player down low. Let's just watch as Andre sets a screen on Jill down there and creates a switch. When he turns, this is precisely the pass we want to make. We're talking about passing priorities. Jill may go down and set a perfect screen and force a switch and get Andre on her back. But I really wouldn't want to throw to Jill because if she gets it down there, what are her chances of scoring? When the ball's on the wing, don't worry too much about what happens on your left side. Look at those people inside. That's where the action occurs. That's where someone can score. Make sure your primary attention is inside with that movement, not on the outside. When the ball's in the corner, put your attention to the basket again. Look, this play outside, what are you going to get out here? Unless this guy coming off the screen is a great shooter, pretty much you can ignore him and look inside. This back screen is what's going to be a basket, or maybe even the screener coming to the ball. The back screen, the movement to the ball. But this play outside, unless you have a great shooter out there, forget it. There's the basket that you're looking for. When you attack a zone, it's important that you know not just the movements and where you're supposed to be, where your teammates are supposed to go. It's important that you know who is where. In other words, let's say you have a point guard with the ball here, and he's engaged 2 defenders. It's important that you know, when you look to your adjacent players in triangle position, which of these is a great shooter. If this player is a great shooter and this person's a poor shooter, I would certainly be looking to give the ball here more than here. You'll throw it anywhere you want, but you want to look for your good shooter. By the same token, here we have 2 players. Here's our center, here's our point guard. As you can see, there's quite a difference in their sizes. I would be reluctant. It doesn't mean I wouldn't throw the ball here, but I'd be reluctant to give the ball to a little man in the post. I'd be a lot more likely to wait till they did a hat dance and I could give the ball to a postman, to a big postman right here. By the same token, if I wanted to throw a lob pass for a jam, you certainly don't want to throw a lob pass to a little player. You'd want to wait until there was a hat dance and your best jumper was down here, and then you'd want to throw to him. So the major point is to just always be aware on the court, where are your good shooters? And let's say anytime the ball goes anywhere, you want to be thinking about what shooter is moving into shooting position and who do you want to get the ball to on the high or low post. Remember these 2 things. Always think about who are your good outside shooters and who can really get the ball and score inside. No use throwing the ball to somebody down inside who can't score. Give it to the good scorers inside, give it to the good shooters outside. I'd like to explain a noisy screen here and how to screen. First of all, when you set a screen, you want to make noise telling your teammates when to go. So you always want to set it on 2 feet and make a nice loud noise. And most coaches teach to put one hand in front of your groin area and one across your chest for protection. So most modern coaches teach men and women the same way. Protect your entire midsection with a fist and a forearm, so if someone tries to blast through the screen, instead of getting hit someplace where you don't want to get hit, you protect yourself, and this way you feel powerful and you feel like you're willing to set this screen because you know you can't get hurt. You have your entire midsection covered like this so that you don't worry about her hitting into you or a big person that's mean with elbows hitting into you. So you set the screen this way, And now when your player comes off the screen, here's the illegal part of it. It would be clear to any referee when he comes off, if she tries to get there, if I step here in her way, it would be clearly a violation of the rules. You're not allowed to step in front of somebody. So instead of stepping in front of her when she comes this way, I just turn my back to her when she comes and step right in her path, and at the same time raise my hands and call for the ball. Even though I've done something that would typically be called a violation, I've stepped right in her path, because if she chooses this path, I'll choose this path and put my hands up and call for the ball. That means that every time I set a screen, it's very difficult for someone to get by, because they have to beat the first screen and the second screen. And just by raising my hands and calling for the ball, I won't get a foul called on me. Did you ever think about the life of a zebra? They spend all day in the prairie eating dirt and grass and bugs flying all around, and then lions chase them. When it gets to be nighttime, they're tired. They're out of shape. You can help them. If a ball ever trickles away down the court, especially if you see you have an overweight referee doing your game, run down, use your energy. You're only 16, 17 years old. Run down, get the ball, and give it to the zebra. Believe it or not, the zebra will be grateful, and grateful zebras will reward you. They will reward you. Sometime you're going to get some call that the zebra won't be ready to call, because the zebra's not mad, the zebra's not looking to make the call. Do things for zebras on the court, particularly retrieve loose balls so that they don't have to use their energy. They'll be grateful, and it will help your game. Rule number one has to do with ball faking. Now, you can understand if the point guard has the ball right here and wants to throw the ball to one of these two players, one of these two teammates, and has somebody playing in between, if he just throws the ball to one of them, this player can be very alert, ready to intercept that way or ready to intercept this way. But by ball faking, he can get this player to move and free this player up completely. Ball fakes are very effective against the zone. I want to show the importance of ball faking against the zone. Typically, one player always has two sides to cover, because one player covers an area. That means that Carter would have to worry about guarding somebody there and guarding somebody there. And knowing that a player has an area to guard, if I just show I'm going to throw here and throw it there, it's easy for him to get the pass. Or if I just show I'm going to throw the ball here, I throw it and he can get over there and get the ball. But if you know that he has to try to guard both, you can free somebody up wide open just by making a ball fake that looks real and getting him to move over there so that you can flip the ball there with no problem. Ball fakes usually aren't too valuable against a man-to-man defense, but against a zone defense, they're terrific. Make emphatic ball fakes to show that the person that came around the screen wasn't free. You look here and she's not free, forcing them to set another screen and another person comes. And when I say emphatic ball fakes, it's got to look like the ball's really coming. In fact, you don't just fake with the ball, but you grimace to show that you're going to throw the ball. They have to be afraid, like, it's really coming. He thinks it's coming. He better think it's coming. It's going. Another word on ball fakes. There are very few players who are emphatic enough making ball fakes and really grimacing when they make it, or when they make ball fakes. So the one thing I really want to emphasize, you will think that you're making a good ball fake by doing something like this, or that you're grimacing by making just some little movement with your face. You have to realize that to make a really good ball fake, you really have to move the ball and scare somebody, make them think that the ball's coming to them. And with your face, you want to show them that, oh, I'm trying to throw it to you, I just can't. You'd like to indicate with your body and your face and everything, I'm trying to give it to you, but I can't. And overdo it when you're in the circle and when you're practicing, and in the games, it'll pay off. referees are zebras. They look funny. They don't smell too good. They don't use any deodorant. Most of them have big bellies. They don't understand very well. They don't habla no inglés. Why pay any attention to them? Don't excite zebras. Don't come to their attention. Don't want their attention. Let them alone. Don't want fouls. Don't foul. Forget about zebras. Focus on yourself. I wouldn't really call this a fundamental. It's just something that when I watch basketball games, or any good coach watches, it bothers you when you see this, and yet the typical high school player doesn't know it. Anytime there's a loose ball and you're going for it, it's amazing that you never see a pro dribble a loose ball, but you see high school players all over the country dribble a loose ball to get it. Seems like a little thing. There's a loose ball, you're running after it, you dribble it and you pick it up. Why do pros not do that? Because a pro seems to always realize if you knock the ball down to get it, you don't have a dribble left to go anywhere. You always pick up a loose ball. There's actually two reasons. Not only does that allow you to pivot and go someplace with a dribble, but it also gets the ball into your possession as soon as possible. What you don't want to do is run after a loose ball and push it down and let the ball in play a split second longer, so if someone's running behind you, he can steal that ball. Anytime you're going after a loose ball or there's a ball on the ground and it's bouncing a little bit, never try to dribble it to pick it up. Always go to grab it and make it yours by putting it in tough position and then doing something. Let's say a coach sends you to do a drill and you don't particularly like the drill. You know how many drills you've done in your life where you're just going through the motions to satisfy the coach. My challenge to you is to start to get yourself, not because a coach is looking over your shoulder, but because you realize that to be a champion, you have to start doing things with precision, with hustle, with spirit. In other words, when a coach gives you a drill to do, you've got to get tuned in. You've got to do that drill as efficiently as you can. You have to remind your teammates of the important highlights or the points of emphasis in that drill. If one of your teammates is doing something wrong, you have to correct him or her. Do it in a good way if you can. In fact, be conscious of encouraging. But you've always got to have that spirit. You've always got to have the hustle. If you want to be a champion, that is. Naturally, some of you are sitting back saying, oh, gee, another typical coach saying we have to do this, we have to do that. Sure, if you want to be a mediocre player, you don't have to do those things. We're talking in these tapes about how to become a champion. And there's no shortcut to becoming a champion. You have to do all the things you do well. I'd like to say, finally, about the drills that you do, you have to learn to make them competitive even if they're not competitive. In other words, if we just have 4 people standing in a line shooting, you need to start saying, okay, let's hit 4 in a row. Put pressure on your teammates to get each one in. And if you got 4 in a row, then you have to start thinking, let's get 8 in a row. And you turn the drill into something competitive even if it isn't. Also, periodic displays of spirit are wonderful. Everybody's just kind of bogged down and you realize it and you start clapping rhythmically, like da, 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 da. You make your own rhythms. Get your teammates to join in and make basketball more fun. But I want to say this and make it clear. If you don't learn to apply championship principles to everything you do on a basketball court, don't expect to be a champion. Imagine a game that ends 60-60. Everybody knows what kind of game that is. It's going to go into overtime. It was a great game. We scored, they scored, we scored, they scored. We stopped them, they stopped us. 60-60 is a great game. Now think about this. Let's say in that very game we went back and in the first quarter we just did one extra little thing. We scored a three-pointer instead of missing it. And one time the other team got a wide open three-pointer, but we played a little better defense, got a hand in the face and forced them to miss. In each quarter, in each 8-minute segment, we add one little thing that we do well, and we take away something from the other team. In other words, in each quarter, we add 3 points to our score, and take 3 points away from the other team. That means at the end of the game, we don't have 60 anymore, we have 72. And the other team, instead of having 60, has 48. Now think of yourself opening a paper and looking at a game score and seeing 72 to 48. What's your first thought? Great game? No way. 72 to 48 is a slaughter. The game's not even close. And then you think about it. Wait a minute, 72 to 48. All that kept that from being a 60 to 60 tie was a little thing each way in each 8-minute period. I hope you can understand by thinking about the difference between a 60-60 game and a 72-48 game, that it's very crucial the way you think, the way you practice, and the way you prepare. You really have to apply championship principles to everything you do. I want to make this clear how thoroughly I believe that, because I'm going to say if I were your coach, I wouldn't even let you make a transition during practice without applying championship principles. In other words, I would want you to show me at every stretch in the practice, even when I said, okay, let's stop that drill and go to the next one, I would want you running to midcourt. In fact, as soon as I blew the whistle, I'd want you stopping dead. So in case I wanted to correct something, you'd all be right in the place that I wanted to correct it. And then I'd want you to give me instant eye contact, to look at me right away. As soon as you heard that whistle, stop dead, eye contact. And then if you hear another whistle, I'd want you running to come to the middle and showing me that you understand the kind of effort, the kind of enthusiasm, the spirit, and the hustle you need to be a champion. In other words, every transition, this is when we're not even playing, we're not even practicing, we're just changing from one thing to another. I wouldn't ever want you walking. I wouldn't ever want you just like moseying someplace. All the time, I believe, in every transition, you've got to re-demonstrate championship performance. In fact, I think you ought to keep in mind what I call the 3 N's during every transition. Noise, you make noise with your mouth. Names, you call somebody's name and encourage that person, or 2 or 3 people, while you're in transition. And the last one is knees. Doesn't exactly start with N, but you get the idea. Noise, names, and knees. You pick up your knees when you're running. You can't walk to talk to a coach. You can't walk to go from one drill to another. In transitions, you do it with a kind of championship performance to remind yourself and your teammates what championship performance is all about.